Powered by Rep Media in partnership with TSN, it is Season 6 of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast, presented by our title sponsor, Tim Hortons. A Canadian score with new Tim Hortons 3-meat hat-trick flatbread pizza, served hot, fresh out of the oven every single day. Features sliced bacon, pepperoni, the sausage crumbles, delicious. And also available is the new cheesy pull-apart garlic bread. So there's an awesome pairing there for any flatbread pizza, loaded wrapper bowl at Tim Hortons. Well, Ray, the broadcast community, hockey broadcast community, lost a real good friend on Monday. We're recording this episode of the Ray and Dregs podcast here Tuesday morning. Greg Millen passed away at the age of 67. And I'm sure back in your playing days, you would have crossed paths with Millsy on a number of fronts, most definitely as a broadcaster. And for me, in cutting my teeth, at least at the network level, Millsy was one of the guys I leaned on very, very early, right? Because he had the experience in coming from Hockey Night in Canada. He comes over to Sportsnet in 1998. And, whether it was the stories, the voice, that big booming laugh, he was always fun to be around. So deeply connected to his family and friends. And I think we're both proud to say that we'd be in the group of friends, right?
Yeah, I played with Millsy actually when I got called up to Hartford. Yeah. And so, I certainly had heard of him. You didn't know him. And so I got called up. I'm 20 years old. And there's a couple stories that I've heard in the last day here, where we got a little text chain of old Whaler dudes. And so we used to practice at this community rink in Hartford. If you can imagine, it was the NHL. It was the West Hartford city rink. So we'd drive our cars over there, half dressed, get out of the car, practice in this freezing ice box, and then drive back. So Millsy always, when we do our warm-up drill, he'd always put his glove behind his back because, the gloves weren't like today. Like you catch it, it was like catching it in your bare hand. Like it hurt.
It would hurt.
So he'd put his glove behind his back and he'd use his stick like a tick-tock, like an old clock. And he was really good at stopping shots over on his glove side. So I'm a rookie. Again, I don't know him or at the time very well at all. And so I come down and I shoot from like the top of the circle. I shoot one over on the glove side and he pulls his glove out and catches it. And as I skate behind the net, he's laughing. He goes, "You don't shoot hard enough, kid." And he was just laughing at me. And so, it's kind of like put you in your place a little bit. But this is not a unique story to Millsy. Several goalies used to do this in the old Colisée in Quebec City. Two best hot dogs in the league, Montreal and Quebec City. And the spare goalie there was no room on the bench. So the spare goalie sat across the ice where our dressing rooms were, and he'd sit like in the big doorway, just sit there. It's like another fan. And Millsy would always sneak a hot dog or two in his glove. And so in the period, and again, all the spare goalies, it became a thing. They'd either have them in their pad. John Garrett used to do this all the time, I know for sure. But you go by there and Millsy would hold his glove up and take a bite of the hot dog when you were skating by because he was just sitting over there watching the game. Now, it was just shocking news to see yesterday, and to Annie and the family, and just our condolences. I guess that's all you can really offer up.
You're right. Gone far too young, 67 years of age. Rest in peace, Millsy, but the stories will live on forever. All right, let's get into the Tim Hortons headlines, Ray. And so many different ways we could start and meander through the headlines, but based on history being made on the weekend, why don't we start there, right? And timing is everything, isn't it? The playoffs are looming, the intensity of the playoffs is there, and then you've got Alex Ovechkin on the cusp of making history, and he does it by scoring his way into the history book with that power play goal on Sunday versus the Islanders, number 895, and of course it would be from the top of the left circle on the power play, almost a fitting and perfect way to establish the record.
It was really cool. We were watching, and to see, they're coming up the ice, and we're all just paying attention, and it didn't. Like a lot of his goals, I think certainly later in his career here, it doesn't look like much as is happening. And then it's a lightning bolt and it's in the net. And so
Yeah.
I thought it was just so cool that so many things that were just regular to Ovie's game came into play on that goal. It's a power play goal. I know it's not the one-timer, but it's from the left circle. One of his longtime teammates and really, really speaks highly of him is Tom Wilson, makes the pass across. The similarities, the same number of games to Gretzky. Gretzky's last goal was against the Islanders. Ovie breaks the record against the Islanders. Like 31 years that Gretz held the record. 31 years Gordie Howe held the record. Like all those things, the symmetry of that. Seeing the way that Spencer Carberry talked about the goal after the game, about it's like they had a good look, but there was no net, and then it's in the net, and I thought it was it was an amazing thing to watch, and I think hockey celebrates numbers more than most sports. Like when somebody breaks the passing yards in football, it doesn't really have the same thing. I get the home run record was sacred until Bonds got it, and then it felt all tainted and all that. But everybody knew 755 was the number for Henry Aaron forever. So I don't know, the hockey number is such a significant one. I just thought it was really cool. And then to turn around and he does his belly flop dive, and that was awesome.
There's something too about the aura of Ovie, isn't there? Right? Like celebrate the character of the man, because he's been that since he broke into the NHL. And so as the evening wraps up, I mean, the celebration was terrific, like a 15-minute on ice celebration. I felt like it was handled well by the National Hockey League, by everyone involved. But as the night ends back in Washington, Ovie and his family walk into the restaurant. The first thing that happens is somebody hands him 2 beers. And it was just perfect timing. Yeah, okay, thanks. Let's get on with the night. This is going to be a good night.
I'm going to give a little shout out to their PR guru, Sergey, who has
terrific guy. Yeah,
unbelievable guy. Nothing's a problem, even when it is a problem. You would have seen him standing right by Ovie's side throughout this whole thing. But Sergey does an amazing job in making sure things get lined up and done well. And Kimber, who is in with the Island, is another fantastic guy. And I thought they really presented everything really about as well as it was going to be. It was never going to be this tie. They said 7 minutes they were going to stop the game for. Like they can't even get the carpet out there in 7 minutes. And like stop it, right? So I don't know. Those guys deserve a little tip of the cap. They did a terrific job. I'm just gonna. I don't know if you're watching. Like I'm giggling every so often.
Yeah, a little bit. I can tell you're not distracted, but something's making.
Yeah, no, I am. So the guys are texting into our little chain here about Greg Millen, and there's a couple of stories that are coming in here. They're just so funny. And I don't mean to be like, oh, I'm on the inside and it's not that. It's just, they're just such great remembrances.
Hockey stories, right?
And they're all around one guy, which is Millsy. And, I don't know. So if I'm a little, it's because I'm reading this stuff too. It's really just really great stuff.
No, that's terrific. All right. Well, from there, let's get in. I mean, there's so many big games every single night now. And I mean, that seems pretty obvious. St. Louis Blues franchise record setting winning streak tumbles in Winnipeg on Monday night. The Jets win that one 3-1. I mean, this could be a playoff preview. The Jets, Vegas. I mean, we'll see who St. Louis
Tiny thinks so.
But yeah, we get somebody at the door here. But is Winnipeg as dialed as we've seen them in a long time? And I guess that's obvious, but let me just finish by saying, because they seem really motivated by the idea of not only winning the division, but also winning the President's Trophy. I mean, it's about the playoffs. I understand all that, but they also know they're not in the playoffs yet. And at least to themselves, there's still more to prove in this regular season.
You know, Dregs, I think there's a pride to winning division and President's Trophy. I really do. I think it matters. But I'm looking at, like, so I'm in Denver today, and so the Avs and Vegas are here, and I'll put them in the same boat as Winnipeg, even though they're all in a little bit different things. All three are very good teams. They're all staring around the Western Conference, and they know that there's no tiptoe into the playoffs.
Yeah.
And every one of their coaches is saying the same thing with different words. It's like, I don't know if we're ready. It's go time. It's time to focus in. These games are critical now. There's only two things that matter at this point, is getting your game as sharp as you possibly can and trying to be bloody healthy when you get there. And the second one, you don't really have a lot of control with. The Avs are dealing and dancing around a couple of injuries that looks like Vegas is going to be okay with Hurdle. But man, it's a pressure filled time, even though the pressure doesn't start for another 2 weeks. Like you can even sense it, even talking to the guys. Like, I ran into a couple of them yesterday in the airport, and they're just edgy. Like, they want to get going, like they know. I think there's about, I don't know, it's probably 6 or 8 teams that think, well, maybe more, that think we could win.
Yeah.
We could win. Now, about St. Louis, they'd won 12 in a row. You can always tell, players know too, you can always tell when a streak's going to come to an end. And the way it is you win a couple of games you probably shouldn't, or you win them in really sloppy fashion. Their last 2 games, they won 5-4, St. Louis. They had a 4-2 lead on Pittsburgh with like a minute and a half left. They end up winning in overtime. And Montgomery wasn't obviously not too thrilled about that. They're playing the other night against Colorado. They're up 4-0. They take a nap. It's 4-3. And so, like, a couple little cracks start to show in the thing. But St. Louis is rolling along pretty great. They lost Holloway. That's a big loss for them. And if he's out a few weeks, right? Now they got Jimmy Snuggerud in from, his college season ended, and they're really high on him. But he's what Holloway was prior, right? He's just a young, really prospect they're really excited about. But he's just getting going. So, you don't really know what you have yet. But St. Louis would not be an opponent I'd dial and say, oh, yeah, that'd be great. No. But the Jets are good, man. So the Jets are good, but so are 4 or 5 other teams.
Absolutely.
Like, teams are gonna lose in the first round, and it's going to be a major disappointment. And then the team that they lose to is going to go to the conference final. And you're going to go, right? It's hard.
There's so many educated fan bases across the National Hockey League. That's just the reality, right? And I'm not talking about cheering for the obvious, but you may have been traveling, but there was a shift that Brandon Hanif had for the Winnipeg Jets in that game where he blocks a shot. Okay, no surprise there, but it stings him, right? And he's hobbling, he's bobbling, and he's trying. And then he kind of throws himself in front of another one and another one over here before they finally clear the zone, and he races to get off the ice. And the roof was coming off that building, right? Just because they're like, it's mayhem out there. And this guy is just throwing himself in front of the firing line. It was just fun to watch.
Well, Tanev's effort and heart is as big as him. I mean, that's why he's in the NHL. When you watch him play, like, you can't help but admire the way he lays himself on the line.
Yeah.
Like, you gave this example, but it's all the time. Now, I think I've told you this story, Dregs. I don't think I've told it on the podcast, but I think I've told you this. I always kind of share a little bit of a laugh with him, for whatever reason. He does something that I used to do a lot, but he is, without a doubt, the champion door slammer in the NHL. Nobody slams the bench door harder or more frequently than Tanev. And to the point, like, you've done games in Columbus, right?
Yeah.
When that damn cannon goes off and it's going to come?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
but
know
it's coming. And it still gets you every time you jump. I can tell he's had a bad shift and he's coming to the bench. I know he's going to slam the door, and he gets me every time. It startles me. It's so loud, and then he just sits down and he's looking around, and that hair's going all over the
Oh yeah,
place.
the eyes.
And then he like reaches his water bottle, he takes a big drink, and I think if he could slam it again, he would, but it's already closed. And so it's just every time I hear his name, he's like, if there was a championship belt for door slamming, he would be
He's
the
there?
champion. Oh no, it's his.
Good.
It's his. Yeah.
Yeah, and look, I mean, sneaky good ad by Chevrolet off the Jets. I mean, sure,
Yep.
they swung for a bigger fence. You know, in Brock Nelson go down the list of the piece they wanted to add, but felt pretty good coming out of the trade deadline with Brandon Tanev and Luke Shin. All right, the Calgary Flames. Are we ready to stick a fork in them yet? I mean, they're hanging in there. You know, they squeak one out over the San Jose Sharks. I mean, as far as must-win games go, that's must-win. But when you look at that wild card hunt in the West, what do you see? I mean, I see Calgary. Unfortunately, they're going to run out of real estate here.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the standings right here, and so they're 4 back with 5 games left.
Yeah.
Minnesota's got 4, so let's give them the game in hand. That gets them 2 back. But really, they're 3 points back because they're not going to, they don't have the tiebreaker. Right. I think they're gonna fall short. I go back to the first game of the season. It seems like 40 years ago, and I ran into Craig Conroy. They gave up 4 goals in the first period and won in Vancouver. And Connie's excited most of the time anyway, but he was just like, just vibrating with like excitement about what his team had just done. And he said,
sure,
we don't really know how the year's going to go. We're really excited about a lot of our players. They've had a fantastic year. They really have. I do think they're going to fall a bit short. I just think Minnesota's going to be able to, they got to be able to get 4 points out of this, don't they?
You would think so.
And so, but now all of a sudden, so it becomes Winnipeg and Minnesota. And, and so that's a completely different series, right? So I would say you can be pleased where you are and displeased where you are and be at the same points, right? Like Minnesota is probably going, like we have no players. We're kind of hanging in there. Calgary should be excited where they are. Utah's probably looking to next year and go, man, we're right there.
Yeah.
Vancouver's disappointed and says, if just 1 or 2 things go differently, we're probably in a different spot this year. Like
a few more wins in that first half, right? 5-6 games in that first half. Yeah.
Well, so Dregs, I'll point out the obvious is Pettersson, right? He's going to have to be better. But if Demko's healthy, they probably have 6 or 7 more points anyway.
Right.
If they win just half of the 13 overtime and shootout losses, it's another 5 or 6 points. They're in a different conversation. But that's why the league's so hard.
Yeah.
So every other team's got the same story in some way, shape, or form. The Oilers are probably thinking, man, we don't have any players. And they're just trying to get in. I thought they were going to call up Rashog, but Ken Hitchcock said it was one of his favorite players to coach. And
the quote was, "You were a terrible player."
I had it backwards. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing me in on this. I was actually just going to jump in on this Calgary, Minnesota question, guys. I do want to add a little texture with the schedule. There is still one head-to-head between the 2 teams. And then Calgary's other games are Anaheim, San Jose, Vegas, LA. Minnesota's schedule, obviously they got the game against Calgary. They've got San Jose, Vancouver, and Anaheim left. So Minnesota with not a lot of meat left on the schedule there.
Put it this way, if Minnesota doesn't get in with that schedule, that's on them.
Shame on them.
Just for what you pointed out, Ryan. I mean, they've got on paper, they've got an easier road.
Yeah. So the Oilers and the Kings both lose on Monday night. Really doesn't matter. I mean, it kind of does, but you've got LA in at second. The Oilers are at third. And one more time, these two teams are likely locked in to another opening round playoff matchup.
Yeah.
But to your point, especially Edmonton, just their biggest concern is just getting healthy. And they will. There shouldn't be any alarm bells ringing there, but that's going to be a pretty big factor in the success of that round.
Right. I would think if players can jump back in and be close to A1, I mean, McDavid would be that type of player, right? That some guys, it takes longer than others. The one thing that's happened, though, in this last little bit where the Oilers have fallen off and the Kings I'm just looking again, the Kings have lost 5 times at home this year.
Yeah.
And they're going to have, as it sits now, they've got the extra home game. So here they go again, right? 4 years in a row. And you start to get nervous, I think, if you're an Edmonton fan, that can you win all the time against the same team? I mean, that's how I would be if I were cheering for my team. Now, it might start in 2 weeks and be completely different.
Yeah.
But it's like, LA's managing some stuff with Doughty and there's the playoffs are just so different, but we could sit here and predict and try and figure out who's got the upper hand, blah blah blah, and then we'll all make our first round guesses. And I mean, something happens in game 1 that changes the whole trajectory of the series.
So you just prompted something here. We'll get to the New York Rangers because we have to. Yet again, we have to talk about the New York Rangers. Where are you on the whole idea of load management? I mean, I've never really felt like it's real other than maybe a game here or there. Again, as you're creeping to game 82, there's no positional change that's likely. I guess, people seem to come out and almost offer load management as a description of the negative, and they're offended by it because they pay big dollars and they want to see the best players on that team playing in that game. But if I'm the general manager, the head coach, every player is something that's kind of nagging or bugging them at this point of the regular season.
Right.
Does it really matter? And how prevalent is it, if at all? Because of what I said, everybody's got something.
Well, again, it would depend on who and what, right? How significant. I mean, there are guys that play with things in the playoffs that you just would not play with in the season. You just wouldn't. And so in the season, if you can get a little bit of time, you'd probably want to take it. Where I look at it is in the last month of the season, in particular, is when I would focus more a little bit on this. If you have, and the teams, every team will tell you, any coach you talk to, we talk to them every day. One of the first things they tell us is, oh, we just played 16 games in 31 days. Or we just played 12 games in 23 days. They all know the number of days and the number of games.
Yeah.
If in that stretch, if you have a 3 and 4, say you play game, day off, game. Mm-hmm. If you give one of your banged up players the game off right after the day off, now they get 3 days off. That goes a long way. You don't get smacked around. B, whatever your injury is or nick is, it's got a couple more days. I think that's where the load management really can be strategically used.
All right. New York Rangers get pumped by the Tampa Lightning 5-1. That Lightning team is... Again, round 1 on both sides is going to be so much fun to watch. Post-game NHL analyst Mike Rupp, with a pretty pointed assessment of the game and really the season for the New York Rangers on his X account, posted the following: no structure, no pushback, no discipline, no details, no accountability all season long. I mean, it's a harsh assessment, but it also reeks of accuracy, doesn't it? When you think back to the year that it's been, and maybe they just blew it up a little too early with being too aggressive with Jake Trouba and go down the list of the changes that Chris Drury tried to make and did make.
Dregs, I did the game last Saturday in Jersey, and I mean, at the time they were sitting right on the cut line. And
Yeah.
the lack of, I said in the game, there is no pushback here. Like to my left, it's like a bunch of guys watching a movie, like out on the ice. They just sat there, they watched the game, they went out and did their shift, completed their shift, and then came back and sat down. There was just a lack of, like, everything that Mike is talking about there is, you see it.
Yeah.
Like you just see it. Now, how do you fix it? Here's the thing. A year ago at this time, President's Trophy winners.
Mm-hmm.
They got to their series last year. They lost in 6 to Florida.
Mm-hmm.
If it wasn't for Shesterkin, that series was over in 3. It was as one-sided a close series as you could imagine. I mean, it was close. It was 3 games to 2, right? Going into Florida.
Yeah.
Shesterkin was beyond brilliant. And a goalie's allowed to do that. But I think what ends up happening is it wallpapers over all the holes in the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And they got exposed. They're not fast enough. They're not aggressive enough. The changes they made were significant and, as it turned out, very messy. And that all lingers around. I see a summer of change here for the Rangers. But you got 4 years left on Zibanejad's contract. He's got a full no move. Like, if you want to make a change there, how does that happen? It's not easy. And so, and they had been in that part of the cycle of trade picks, trade futures for now. And they should, because they were a really good team. But the problem is, eventually you got to pay the bill. And the bill's now, and they don't have a lot. Well, many teams don't have a lot of NHL ready players. The Rangers don't. And it's going to be very interesting to see what happens.
Well, and all kinds of speculation, and now being reported around Peter Laviolette. I can appreciate, I can understand that. But I always submit the same thing. When a coach gets fired, who's better? Unless somebody like pops into the market, like a Mike Sullivan or a piece like that, John Tortorella's available. I guess conceivably we could see him going back under the want of ownership in New York, back to the New York Rangers. But I mean, coaching is one thing, but there's a lot of work required.
Yeah, but Drake, so here's the thing with a coach. There's always coaches that aren't on the tip of our tongue. Like when Spencer Carberry was hired 2 years ago in Washington, did the rest of the hockey world go, oh, that's the guy we should have hired? No, he's a young guy. You didn't know. There are coaches that are sitting outside this league they're ready for a chance. Now, is New York the chance? Is that the right place? I don't know. But the air needs to be changed around. I'm not talking to coaching staff specifically, but that's part of it. The air needs to change around there. It feels heavy and stagnant.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where, in my opinion, that's where they're at.
All right. Final one for the Tim Hortons headlines. Josh Leivo scored his 49th goal in the KHL the other night. I mean, he hasn't played in the National Hockey League since 22-23. He's early 30s. I mean, 49 goals in that league is a pretty good number, isn't it? I mean, I would bet. I think he just signed a 2-year extension, though. So maybe that gets complicated whether he can break it or not. But you've watched him play enough, right, around the league in Vancouver, et cetera. Worth kicking tires on if you're a team that just needs another depth look, if he's affordable, all of those things, or do you look at the KHL a little bit differently?
Oh, I look at it differently for sure. One of the reasons is because I don't watch it anymore, and it feels like there's 3 teams in the league, and they're the only ones that got a chance to win. If you play on those 3 teams, you got a chance to win. So Josh is probably in every position to score. He's got good hands, and he can shoot the puck. His skating has always been the negative to him. Can he keep to the pace? But if you look at him, can he score 15 goals? And if he can play, say he's on your 3rd or 4th line,
Yeah.
and he plays on your second power play, could you reasonably expect 15 goals? And not knowing what his salary is over there, would he come back? Would a player like that come back for $800,000?
Yeah.
Or,
And again, I'm
that's
not sure
kind of
what
what
his
you're
out
looking
is. Yeah, I assume
right?
he has. Most of those guys have NHL out clauses, so I'm not sure.
I would assume if you've got a chance to live in North America,
Yeah.
again, you would take it. But
Yeah.
if you're talking about setting your family up for your post career, then maybe you think of it differently.
Right. All right. Those are your headlines. Thank you to Tim Hortons. One of our favorite segments, Ask Ray and Dregs Anything. You can send us your questions on X and Instagram at Ray and Dregs or on the website, rayandregs.com. Brought to you by our good pals at Acon. If you're a skilled tradesperson or construction pro and you need work in Western Canada, Acon wants to hear from you. Acon is a North American construction leader, proud to be one of Canada's original industrial contractors. Join Acon now by sending your resume to trades@acon.com. All right, TSN's Ryan Rashog is waiting. There he is. What's the matter?
Why
You're
is it
staring
your
deeply into
favorite?
Huh?
Why is it your favorite segment? What's different?
I
and
said it's
unique
one of my
about it that
favorite
made it-
segments. We
Why?
only have
What-
3.
Anything in particular you especially love about it?
Yeah, when Zuby's on. Yeah,
Oh,
that's the part I like.
I love the end.
I'm thinking. There's no compliment
Yeah,
to be found on this podcast.
It's
ever.
close to the end. That's why we like it so much.
All right, we got 2 questions, Ovechkin related, and then we're going to do some rapid fire because I know you guys love rapid fire.
Great. Yeah.
Before we get to them, though, Ray, just really quickly, fascinated by this Hartford Whalers chat. Please tell me that someone is technologically savvy enough that the logo for your chat group is that badass Whalers logo. Please tell me someone did that and it's not just a collection of numbers.
I'm sorry, Ryan, to disappoint you. It is
Who's
it is a
going to do
collection
it?
of
Like
them.
Coach Q? Like who's doing that?
No, actually, remarkably, the first text out was Kevin Dineen. And if you
Okay.
guys know Kevin Dineen, how he found the text symbol is amazing. Like there is no, as disorganized as I am, he is in the Hall of Fame of like, I can't believe when it came from him I'm like, oh, that's kind of neat. And so there's, Kevin and Dean Evison and Dave Tippett, Ron Francis.
It is a travesty. It's a travesty
Ryan,
that
who's
there's a
gonna do
collection of
that?
old Whalers
Who's
that
gonna do
don't
that?
have that. I'll walk you through it after the show. Will you do it if I walk you through how?
Not a chance.
Ah,
Not a chance.
Why does it
That is
matter?
such
It
a
doesn't
waste.
matter. You're not selling it.
just that
That's your
Whaler
sales-
logo is fantastic.
It is fantastic, and that's all of those
It should
guys
be
I
there.
mentioned. We helped put the team in Carolina.
Okay.
It's very true.
You're
Yes,
not
you
entitled
did.
to that logo. You're not entitled to use that thing. All right, let's get to what a couple of write-ins here on Alex Ovechkin. So Nick Dorsey, a regular contributor here, he fires in and says, with the season Alex Ovechkin is having, how is he not in contention for the Hart? Team is number 1 in the conference, exceeding all expectations. Ovechkin at 39, missing 16 games, still top 3 to 4 in the league in goals scored. Incredible. #greatness. Now, look, I'm not going to ask if you think he has a chance to win the Hart Trophy, but could you see him getting some votage there, Dregs? Could you see some, you see guys getting those 4th, 5th, 6th place votes?
I mean, again, keep in mind that the voting process is transparent now. Like once the votes have been submitted, and then in category by category, the full disclosure comes out, and we can see who everybody voted for. So in that context, I would say I could envision people voting for Alex Ovechkin. I won't be among them, only because, with all due respect, I mean, we all enjoyed the spectacle and an incredible accomplishment that 3 to 5 years ago, I don't think any of us thought was going to happen. But then you look at the year that Draisaitl is having, Connor Hellebuck, obviously, Nathan McKinnon, Makar. I mean, go down the list. Nikita Kucherov. I just.
I'll throw another name in. He won't
Yeah.
win, but I don't recall how deep you vote, like how many names.
5.
But is it 5? Because
Yeah.
in my head, I'd have Jack Eichel close to it as well. He's an underrated pick for me. I think he's one of the best centers in the game. And but I think I'm going to have a tough time getting by Draisaitl. But, as I think just like Draisaitl, McKinnon, Draisaitl, McKinnon, Kucherov, Hellebuck. I mean, like, where's the room? Like there's, what he's done is amazing. Did you guys see the high view of the goal where like somebody took a video from the upper deck and the puck gets cleared down the ice and Ovie's meandering back. He doesn't take one stride. He doesn't take one stride. Then he turns around and now he's coasting back up the other way. He doesn't take, it's really a skill to not take one stride both ways in the neutral zone until it hits the blue line. And then it's 4 strides, chop, 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 in the net, game's over.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I saw that goal, and then I saw a goal from, 15 years ago where he just powered down the wing and blew the D out, shouldered in, and then, roofed it. And I'm like, oh my God, that's the same guy. Like, it's amazing.
So that transitions beautifully into our next question from Alex in Kitchener, who says, do you think Ovechkin has had to change his game a lot these last few months to try and score at this pace? And if so, can he keep playing that way in the playoffs? And I will note, gentlemen, as he's gotten close to the record, we all know where the focus has been. They have dropped 5 of their last 7 games. The only teams they've beaten, the Boston Bruins and the Chicago Blackhawks. Dregs?
I am curious, and it is an excellent, well-placed question, because I wonder how Spencer Carberry views Ovie's overall game in the playoffs in a different environment outside of, the rarity of the man advantage. We all know how the power play can be effective and game-changing in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and he'll always have a seat there. Beyond that, you're not going to staple him to the middle of the bench. Obviously not. But I think that there'll be a different approach, don't you, Ray, as to just game scenarios, situational stuff where, from a team perspective, you can't have him out there maybe as much as he's been.
I think if people go inside, if they have access to go inside the way that Ovie's been used, you'll see that's really already happening. More so than any other time in his career, the last couple of years, and I know this because Carberry told us this, is that they've had to find ways to make Ovie have the best chance of success. Sometimes he plays right wing because they feel like he can get out quicker on the breakout on the right wing than he can on the left wing because of the way you have to turn your body. He doesn't play 4-on-4. His minutes 5-on-5 are pretty managed. He plays 2 minutes on the power play. He goes on for offensive zone faceoffs. So like they're very strategically trying to use his 17 minutes. And I think that will continue. One thing the Caps have been really good at is play four lines a lot.
Yeah.
So I don't think that will change. Ryan, to your point about the record, I think it was inevitable. Like, they're in first place. They can't fall out of first place. Mm-hmm. They're really playing for one thing. And the focus was not on playing. I think it's really helpful for Washington that this is now done. Yeah. Now Carberry can go in and say, I'm sure you had a great weekend. Guys, unbelievable way to help. We all contributed to this. And we got to put that in the past. And now it's time to go to work. And I think they'll take great energy of that. Underrated. One thing I'm going to say about the Caps, I don't know, I haven't read about it, but haven't seen. Logan Thompson's been banged up. I don't know what his status is. And Alexi Protas left one of the games on the weekend. If he's not back and Thompson's not back, that's a different team. Mm-hmm. And they've been incredibly healthy this year. They really have.
All right. Good points by you. Great questions from Nick and from Alex. Really we thank them. Now let's get to the dumb ones. Our rapid fire segment. Want to keep it reasonably q,uick, guys. I'm going to keep you somewhat honest on the length of your answers. The whistle is in play. Just a heads up for you so you're not surprised. Zuby and I went back and forth on some of these questions. So if there's a few you don't like, probably his. Here we go. Eastern Conference Final. Toronto Maple Leafs versus the Washington Capitals. If it happens, who would you take in a series, in a conference final with a trip to the Stanley Cup final on the line between Toronto and Washington. Washington got the season series 2-1 so far this season. Ray, you go first.
Oh, that's hard, man. I think I would take Toronto. Gosh, I can't believe I said that. I think I would. I think all the faith that I've built up since 1968 that they'll win a big one really is, or I guess it's 1960. Yeah, because 67 they won, but I don't know. I guess Toronto. I guess I don't even really know why.
Yeah, Dregs, keep in mind we're going to promote your answer on Twitter. Whatever you say, it's going to be our Twitter promo.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you are. I'll go with Toronto, and mostly because
I would have bet my house on that.
Yeah. Defense, I don't think the Toronto Maple Leafs defense gets enough credit. I really don't. I think that Morgan Riley is going to come back to his game a little bit with the help of Brandon Carlo, and Oliver Ekman-Larsson doesn't get enough credit in this market. I like their D, very physical D.
Okay, moving on. I had a dream last night. I was golfing. There was a 40-minute delay on a hole. Was chatting with 3 or 4 other groups. It was quite cordial. I was shockingly calm. Describe yourselves in that scenario. A 40-minute delay, let's say after the 5th hole, Ray, on a golf course. Describe yourself.
I'm appalled. What the hell is going on up there? It's not that hard. Get the ball, hit the ball, find the ball, hit it again. I would not be happy. Like if I want to sit around and talk to 10 guys, let's go to the pub. Let's go to the 19th hole and have a sandwich. Like, what are we doing here?
No.
I would probably at one point say, let's go. Like I would voice that louder than just to the group.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, like no chance.
What could possibly be happening up there?
No.
Yeah, we weren't sure in the dream. We weren't sure.
No. Okay, but why 40 minutes? Why does it have to be 40 minutes? Like I'll wait 15, maybe 20 if I've played the first few holes, not bad. Zero chance. I'm either in the clubhouse with a nice whiskey in my hand, or I'm in my truck and I'm going home.
Like, I can't even, you say 20 minutes. What the hell is going on?
Yeah.
Did somebody fall down?
Was it a tournament like sponsored by Maxim and there was like shenanigans all around you?
No, there was no shenanigans. There was no goofy games to play. There was no Akon hole. There was nothing. It was just, we were hanging, but we were calm. So I don't know. Maybe it's I don't know. Maybe it's a sign. I got a little more patience than you guys.
That must have been a Zuby question.
Yeah, that was Zuby. That was weak sauce, Zuby. Jeez. Who would you want to face less in the playoffs? The Calgary Flames or the Minnesota Wild? Jumping off that conversation you guys were having earlier. If you're a team that could get either or, who would you want less, Ray?
Well, I'm going to assume that Kaprizov and Ek are back, and I would say Minnesota. I think Minnesota can be a real pain in the ass. I think Calgary, when I look at a team like Calgary, I think of like the old cars that used to run right on the red line. And like they're on the red line the whole way. Yeah, that's and you're like, there's more in this little force shift that I have. And that's what I think about Calgary. I don't know if Calgary has another gear.
Right.
And I think Minnesota does. And Minnesota's is that 2 of their very best forwards will likely be involved in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it boils down to is the health of Minnesota Wild. And I know you're talking about in the moment here and now, but there's a lot more growth. Like if you ask this question a year from now and Calgary is either on that cut line or right, above it, then that's a different conversation, I think, because I do see Conroy being pretty aggressive where it makes sense. So
okay, hang on. You don't think Billy Guerin's going to be aggressive this
season?
He's got money. He's got money and impatience.
Yeah, and a guy in Colorado that he'd like to get parked and get done ASAP.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, more impressive since the Four Nations face-off, keeping their age in mind. Jordan Binnington, 12-2, 2.07 goals against, 916 save percentage. I did those numbers on the back of a napkin before the show, so if they're not exactly right, I think it's close. John Tavares, 14 goals, 10 assists, 24 points in 21 games played. Tavares is 34. Binnington is 31. More impressive. Ray.
I'm going to say by a slight margin, the goalie, always. I think Tavares has had an amazing year. I've been really impressed with his consistency of production. Like, he hasn't really looked like he's, faded as the year's gone on, like you might suspect with older guys. I've been super impressed, but St. Louis won 12 in a row, and the goalie's a huge part of that 12. So by a slim margin, I take Binnington.
Yeah, and I can appreciate that. And you'd sell me with another 20 seconds, but I actually thought Binnington was going to stumble going into the Four Nations, and then he didn't do that at all. So there's no reason other than I admittedly I watched Tavares and the Leafs more than I've watched closely the St. Louis Blues since the Four Nations, and I mean, Tavares is just obviously on a heater. Anytime the puck is around the net and he's on the ice, he's there. Like, the number of net front goals that this guy gets with nifty deflections and all that at that age, he's still got plenty of game left.
All right. Randine and I are going to a party with two other couples this weekend. We are charged with bringing the dessert. We don't go there, Dregs. We don't know what to bring for dessert, so you guys are going to be the final vote. It's down to carrot cake, Nanaimo bars, sex in a pan, or apple pie and ice cream. Lots of debate happening. We don't want to screw this up. What do you guys say?
Okay. You can't bring the apple pie and ice cream. Like, what are you going to do with that? Like,
what with you?
Too messy. And here's the dessert. Hey, can you guys open up room in your freezer for our ice cream? And you can't do that. That one's out. Nanaimo bars, those are for Christmas. Those are out. Sex in the pan, I mean, this has got carrot cake all over it. To me, really? It is one of the great desserts on the planet. Carrot cake lapping the field.
Interesting.
So I'm going off the board because I think you missed a couple of key desserts. One would be tiramisu.
Yeah, this is not open for other suggestions. That was not the question. No, that was, you can't redo you have choices here.
Yeah, but you're not going with four buddies. Like, you're going to, it's a party with couples, right? So it's a higher standard than, you and Zuby and Dave Parker, like, wrestling over a chocolate chip cookie. I mean, come on. No, tiramisu or like lava cake. Something like that.
Lava cake, because that's way easier to transport than apple pie and ice cream. What are you doing over there? Why didn't, you know what I thought Dregs was going to offer up? 200 grams of sliced turkey out of his freaking garage.
Dress up a turkey.
I was trying to think of a dessert that could be just like Napoleon ice cream or something that I could use my meat slicer for.
Oh, that's awesome. Ray dropped out. I don't know if we need
I'm back.
Scammy's calling him.
Yeah, 9 o'clock. Yeah.
All right. Along with teaching you how to add an icon to a chat group, I'm also going to teach you a little trick with the do not disturb button. We'll get to that one in our little tech lesson.
Then you forget to turn it off.
Does that button work when you speak?
Okay, last question. Last question. In honor of our buddy Greg Millen, Chris Johnson had a great article in The Athletic today, telling a lot of good stories about it, pointing out that he was one of the great pranksters. He loved a good prank. Poking a hole in the bottom of someone's cup of coffee with a pin was one of his favorites, and letting it leak all over the place. So in honor of Millsy, I'll ask you guys, the great pranksters through your time, and if there was anything, I know we've done this question a little bit in the past, but who would you say are among the great pranksters? Because that was close to Millsy's heart.
Larry Robinson was my coach in LA. And he was always the target of Rick Green. Rick Green was our assistant coach. Greeny loved screwing around with Larry's stuff. And it was, because they're older than us at the time. And you're like, oh my God, look at this. The coffee cup one, I saw Rick Green put pinholes in like 5 styrofoam cups and put them in the pile. Larry happens to come. He's wearing like Dockers that are like those tan colored or light colored ones. when the coffee sprayed out all over his pants,
Oh no!
I thought Greeny was going to double over in hysterics. It was, so I would say Rick Green was really good at it. Russ Courtnall, really good. And I got to say, I liked messing around a little bit. I actually had some that I was quite proud of that.
Oh, calling your own number.
That like pissed off many people at the same time. That is the goal of any prank. It's not just getting one person, but dragging many into the frustration. I enjoyed that.
I mean, I take some pride historically in a good prank here or there.
Yes.
You know, like there's an art to it. There's mystery. There's all of that stuff, right? Like, you know, you have to invest to pull it off. I went one summer with an old teammate, Troy McDonald is his name. And I drove an old Dodge Scamp for one summer. And this thing reeked like it was rotten. And he had stuck like a fish on the manifold inside the motor of his car. It was rotting on the inside. And he never admitted it till years later. But I knew it was him. So I found a little roadkill and snuck it under the carpet of his vehicle. So under the seat, under the carpet. And it just like marinated in there all summer long. He couldn't get rid of it. So I mean, we were dirty though, man. We'd put like engine oil into the windshield washer.
That's a good one.
The container in your vehicles or all kinds of stuff like that. But
that's way too much planning. I think you got to keep it simple. Just chew a piece of gum and drop it in a buddy's coffee. I think that's like the
you almost get road punch for that one.
That could get you punched to that one.
Yeah, that's what happens when you do that.
All right. Well, Millsy would have loved any and all of those pranks, boys. And that is Ask Ray and Dregs Anything, courtesy our good friends over at Acon. See you, boys.
All right, Ryan. Thank you. You know, he's starting to bite out more and more of the podcast, don't you think? Like Ask Ray and Dregs, God love him. It used to be like a 10-minute quick in and out segment, have some laughs, answer a few questions, and now it's turned into like a 20-minute.
People are demanding it. People.
They are.
Yes, they are. All right, buddy, you're in Colorado.
Yep, it's Colorado today. Home tomorrow. Washington at Columbus on Saturday afternoon, which at the time we were thinking was maybe could be a record breaker. Now we're going to go there and do the game. And then that's my last game before the playoffs for ESPN. I got 2 Canuck games next week. And
nice.
So pretty leisurely stretch into the sprint to the playoffs. You?
Yeah. Yeah,
what are we doing? Thursday again? Are we Thursday?
I think Thursday. Thursday we'll do another episode. I mean, it's all around your travel, so it works on Thursday.
Thursday it is. Thursday's good.
Yeah. I've got Toronto, Florida regional tonight, being Tuesday. Leafs have a couple of back-to-backs in a row here. Then Tampa Bay on Wednesday. So by the time Thursday rolls around, Raymond, we'll have a bit more clarity in how things are shaking down in the East, I think. So we'll have plenty.
It's funny, day to day now, things just get cemented in.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Millsy, rest in peace, buddy.
R.I.P. Millsy. Yes, and thank you to our sponsors who continue to support Ray and Dregs and make this pod possible. Our title sponsor, Tim Hortons, and thank you as well to our friends at Acon. Until next time, stay safe, everybody.